Hello everybody! For the first video of the new year I ended up using a Furret. I sort of have to use more Pokémons from generation 1 and 2 this year, since I am slowly starting to run out of Gen 3 originals. Let's quickly get the rules out of the way. I can only use my starter in combat, I can't use items from my bag in battle, I can't increase my evasion in any way, and I can't use cheats or glitches. Furret looks a lot like a Zigzagoon, just with slightly different fur and body shape. I'm not sure if this was intentional or not, but personally I much prefer the sequel to the original. Who knows, maybe this ball of fur can surprise me today. The start of the game is kinda slow. We have the stab advantage on our normal moves, but they are not very powerful, so it takes a few turns to take down the enemy Pokémons. Like most other normal types, Furret's move pool is very large, but today I don't think I will use many special moves. My base special attack is not great, and it is lowered even further by the not so great nature. As you might expect, the first few fights are not an issue, but the first wall of the run is Roxanne. I leveled a bit for her, but even then all of my moves are normal type, and of course all of her rock Pokémons resist them. So I was not really expecting the fight to go very well for me. I used a few defense curls against her lead, since I know this fight will go on for a long time, and they will surely come in handy later. Roxanne was kinda lucky, as pretty much all of her rock moves hit me today, even though their accuracy is not very good. The only thing that I don't have to worry about is PPs. Between all three of my attacking moves, I am surely going to run out of HP first. While I was fighting her second Geodude, she used both of her potions on it. This was a bit annoying, but now that I think about it, it's much better for me if she uses them on Geodude rather than on her ace. During the fight, I was mostly using Fury Swipes because it has the potential to do more damage than my other moves, but since it is also less reliable, I preferred to switch to Quick Attack for Nosepass. I think her AI broke at some point because she started using all of her moves except Rock Tomb. She might have ran out of PPs, but what I think happened is that because I am now slower than her, she does not want to use it anymore, even though it's her best option for damage. After taking care of some more stuff around town, we can take on the optional fight against May. Since her Pokémons are only neutral to normal, the fight against her was a lot easier and quicker. After taking her down, there should be Brawly, but considering typing and moveset, I did not see how I could defeat him at this point. So instead I went to Slateport, where we find the usual Team Aqua Grunts and defeat them without any issues. Then I leveled up a bit with the trainers there, until I hit level 25, when I learned Slam. Slam is not a good move, it only has 75 accuracy. but 80 power is not that bad for this point in the game. So with this new tool, I went back to Brawly and took him on. Even though the move should miss 1 in 4 times, it always landed on his Pokémons, and it was a surprising one-shot on all of them, even the more beefy Maguhita. Next up is the Bridge May fight. This one can be hard, but today I was feeling confident. I did not want slam misses, so I only spammed quick attacks. This of course did not one-shot her Pokémons, and they were able to hit me back, but not for enough damage to put me down. After some more grinding, we have to face the next gym leader. Fortunately, just outside of his gym, there is a guy who teaches a rollout, and we started with the defense curl, so we can start to roll all over his team, more than a Dark Souls character. The only annoying thing is that rollout still makes contact, so there is a chance that Electric can paralyze me with the static. I had a Cherry Berry, but it got consumed by Voltorb. This time I am a bit lucky and dodged the status, and don't miss any hit, so that's another win in my books. After roaming around the region some more, we meet both teams in Meteorfall Cave, and once they exchange some words, our objective is clear. Go up the mountain and stop Maxi from triggering an eruption. I upgraded my moveset a little bit by teaching Secret Power over Slam and Thief for rock types and such, but to be fair, I never used it. By beating Maxi, we foiled his plans, and so he leaves. We, on the other hand, have to proceed to the next gym. Here I once again witnessed the tremendous power of Rollout by defeating Flannery in 2 moves. I just defense curled and then clicked Rollout. From there, Furret proceeded to demolish all of her Pokémons, one by one. Once we have obtained this badge too, we can backtrack a little to reach our dead gym. He is a bit more tough than the previous gym leader, and so I took things a little slower. I used Secret Power for most of his team members, and cheesed the slacking by using Dig over and over again. This is an extremely safe but slow way of dealing with the problem. Realistically, I could have used Defense Curl on the turns when he attacks. That would have lowered his facade damage too, but I did not think about it at the time. I got a couple of crits that were not needed, but sped up the fight a bit, so I'll take it. After his ace is defeated, I cleaned up the rest of his team with a few more secret powers, and just like that, the 5th badge is now in our hands. Here we get the Surf HM, which Furret can learn, but as I mentioned previously, I am not going to use special moves for the most part. This time I forgot to record the Team Aqua admin in the Weather Institute, but you did not miss much, trust me. May is a bit annoying. 2 of her Pokémons can interrupt rollout, which is just rude, but eventually we get the win here too. The only thing that could be a threat is Kumbasken, but it disappeared as fast as it appeared, so it couldn't do anything. Once we finished beating up her Pokémons, we can move on to the next boss fight. Winona should not be a problem, since she mostly uses flying types, which are weak to rollout, but much like May, her Pelipper can interrupt me and force me to restart the rollout counter. I should have used secret power when that happened, since it is stronger than the first two levels of rollout, but I got a bad case of tunnel vision. To be fair, there is some method to my madness. By killing Pelipper with rollout, I would have boosted its power at least once, which means that I have to spend less turns fighting against Skarmory, which could be a lot more annoying if it starts using Sand Attack. Once we have acquired the 5th badge, we can move on to the next town where we find May, once again busy blocking the mall. To make a favor to the rest of the town, we face her, and much like our previous match, she can't stand up to us. Again, it takes a few turns because I am forcing myself to make rollout work, but eventually we are able to defeat her, so May is no more for this playthrough. After taking care of that situation, we can move on to the pet cemetery, where we acquire the magma emblem from the lady at the top. We can use this key item to enter the Team Magma's base, and after battling our way through multiple grunts, eventually we reach their leader. Here we have another fight with Maxi, and it's not too bad. I was expecting those to be harder because of Intimidate, but thanks to Stab we can still deal decent damage to his Pokémons, not giving him enough time to set up BS strategies like usual. Even though we won, this is a hollow victory, since he managed to wake up the legendary before I could do anything. So we go chasing the other team, and after a while end up face to face with one of their admins. There was not much to say about this fight, I just spammed more moves until he was defeated. Our next encounter is on another level though, because I was quite worried about Tate and Liza. Sure, I can teach Shadow Ball, but I'm not sure how much damage it will do, since we don't have Stab for that. I decided to try to remove the squishier members of their team first, which means leaving Claydol alone to use a lot of earthquakes on me, enough to make Groudon jealous. My HP was going down fast, but thanks to the citrus berry, I had enough in the tank to survive the tectonic shifts, and eventually, after a couple of heals, Claydol was defeated, earning me the 7th badge of the region. After taking care of that, as you are all well aware, I have to go in the building nearby that has been taken over by Team Magma and teach them some manners. Aiding us in our endeavor is the ex-champion Steven. For this fight, I should have used rollout. There are plenty of enemies to defeat, and even though it would have started slow, I am sure it would have saved some turns overall. Instead, I just used a lot of returns for no good reason. I mean, it's still good, assuming that we are at max friendship. After Stab is a 150 power move, effectively a non-stab Hyper Beam. Sure, it's coming off of 75 attack, which is far from the highest in the game, but still, It may have taken a while, but sooner or later we finish off their last Mytiena and are given the Dive HM. With our new exploration tool, we have to reach the seafloor cave where Kyogre resides. Here we find Archie, who attacks us for no reason. His team is a bit annoying with Intimidate and Confusion, but it's not as big of a deal as I thought. This time I did use Rollout once Crobat came out, but it did not change much. After all of his Pokémons were defeated, the red orb that he carries activates by itself and wakes up Kyogre. Now that both legendaries are alive, the weather is a mess and it's up to us to fix the situation for some reason. Personally, I think beating up the legendaries works, but instead the game prefers a more pacifist approach and makes us go fetch Rayquaza. The third legendary ends up screaming at the other two and they decide to stop it. After saving the world, we can take on the last gym. This time I did not use Rollout for two reasons. I thought Return would be enough to one or two shot all of his Pokémons, and Rollout could be too slow considering the ramp up time, the fact that Whiscash resists it, and the not so great accuracy. The only bump in the road was Kingdra, since it took a couple more attacks to defeat because of the potions. Now that we have all of the badges, it's time to enter Victory Road. Here, not long after starting it, we meet Wally, who is the second rival of the game and wants one last serious match. I am not too worried about his team. While it has many different types, none of them is resistant to normal except for Magneton. So for this encounter I pretty much just spammed Return until all of them were defeated. I have to say that I was not expecting Furret to be able to reach the league with 0 resets. I don't think luck played that big of a factor either. Unless the leg is a mess, my opinion on Furret improved a little bit. The first member of the Elite Four is Sidney. The biggest problem in this fight is the Intimidate from Mytiena, so I picked up the Wild Herb to cancel it out. Without the attack debuff, the fight against him is a lot easier. Thanks to the many extra levels I have over him, Return does a bunch of damage and is able to one-shot most of his Pokémons. After defeating the first member, it's time to move on to the next one. Unfortunately, my Shadow Ball does not have quite enough damage to one-shot Phoebe's lead, so her Dusclops curses me and eventually that's a loss. The second attempt goes better. She uses Confuse Ray, which is annoying, because if I hit myself, this gives her turns to use Curse. Thankfully, I am able to ignore the status effect and keep hitting her until her Dusclops falls. From here, the rest of her team is pretty simple. A couple of them survive a hit and attack me back, but nothing too drastic. Sableye wants me to spend a few more turns here, so he makes me miss with the double team. But other than that, there is not much to report. Maybe it's worth mentioning that because of all the stuff that happened, I ran out of PPs for Shadow Ball, and so I was forced to use Rollout this time. Glacia is next, and I thought the fight against her would be pretty simple. All of her Pokémons are weak to rock, so Rollout should be able to seriously hurt them. Well, that was sort of the case, but I still ended up taking a lot of damage. In part because Rollout takes a couple of turns to get serious, and in part because I missed halfway through, so I had to restart it. Not going to lie, things were not looking good at the end. I thought I had to take a loss, but Furret was able to clutch it just in time. So now it's time for the last Elite Four member, and by far the hardest. Drake is very strong. It has Intimidate, but he should bring it out last. His Shelgon can slow me with Rock Tomb, and all of his Pokémons are tanky and deal a lot of damage. I ended up losing a handful of times until I learned the pattern and formed a better strategy. I can finish off Shelgon with Rollout, and from here, assuming that I don't miss, I should be able to one-shot everything else. Altaria is weak, so even stage 2 is enough. Flygon resists it, but stage 4 is too much for it to handle. But unfortunately I end up missing Salamence. I still had lots of HP left, so I was able to start rolling again, take a couple of hits and eventually bring the big dragon to his knees. Last but not least, we have the champion fight, and this one was hard too. His Pokémons have way too much health for me to defeat them reliably with Return, and Rollout does not last long enough to remove all of them. I would also like to point out that two of the losses were from freezes, so not completely my fault. Wailord was just super lucky today. I had to do some trial and error to figure out how to defeat Wallace, but it was an enjoyable experience. This time I used the first two hits from Rollout to finish off Wailord, so that it was powerful enough to one-shot Tentacruel to dodge Toxic, and then sweep the other Pokémons until it lasted. I had to restart it against Gyarados, which is scary since he just sets up in my face, but fortunately he does not have the time to use Dragon Dance many times, so his attacks don't hurt too much. Milotic almost finishes me off, but I can defeat it before running out of HP, and with that the championship is ours. Okay, I am willing to admit that I might have underestimated Furret a bit, but the Zigzagoon line is still better in my opinion. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, subscribe, ring the bell and share the video. If you have any feedback or video ideas, share them in the comments and I'll see you next week. Bye!